You might be a college student if you tell yourself one more episode 2 hours before an 8-page research paper is due.
You might be a college student if you go home for fall break just to find that your room has been turned into an art studio.
You might be a college student if you've eaten hot dogs out of a bowl because you didn't feel like washing a plate.
You might be a college student if you consider getting up at 11 a.m. early.
You might be a college student if your definition of roasting somebody is responding to their discussion board post with just a link to Grammarly.
You might be a college student if you think putting a tablecloth on your table makes your room look high class.
If eating vegetables once a week is considered a healthy lifestyle, you might be a college student.
You might be a college student if the kitchen floor has ever looked like a comfy sleeping place.
You might be a college student if you can convince your professor that you're an expert on a subject you do not know anything about.
You might be a college student if you're watching this video instead of doing homework.
You might be a college student if your favorite kind of pot is a Crock-Pot.
You might be a college student if you learn more from the Urban Dictionary than you do from your classes.
You might be a college student if it's week 12 and you just opened one of your textbooks for the first time.
If you take more naps than infants, you might be a college student.
You might be a college student if the only thing that's lit is that illegal candle you have in your dorm room.
You might be a college student if you've ever washed your hair with dish soap because you're out of shampoo.
You might be a college student if when the clock strikes 12 a.m., the girl in the guy's dorms turns into a pumpkin.
What?
That made a lot more sense in my head.
You might be a college student if you play Super Smash Bros. More than you sleep.
You might be a college student if you've ever eaten rice for breakfast, and lunch, and dinner, and second dinner.
You might be a college student if the term productive napping is in your vocabulary.
If microwaving enchiladas is fancy cooking, you might be a college student.
You might be a college student if there was a hurricane outside on Saturday and you had no idea.
You might be a college student if you randomly fall on the ground screaming.
You might be a college student if your fast food bill exceeds your tuition.
You might be a college student if the contents of your backpack could be classified as toxic waste.
You might be a college student if you've ever been asked, what state do you live in? And you answer, denial.
You might be a college student if athletic shorts are considered underwear on laundry day.
If you randomly make animal noises while you're lying on the floor. You might be my friend Caleb Mashad, who is a college student.
You might be a college student if for the first time in your life you consider personal hygiene optional.
You might be a college student if the most exercise you've gotten is from running away from your problems.
You might be a college student if Oreos are your favorite kind of sandwich.
If gluten is pretty much your favorite food, you might be a college student.
You might be a college student if those pizza rolls that have been on the counter for over 48 hours are probably still okay.
You might be a college student if you price things based on how many packs of ramen you could buy with it.
You might be a college student if after seeing your tuition bill, you Google black market liver prices.
You might be a college student if you're procrastinating procrastination.
You might be a college student if you've ever found change in a vending machine and said, yes, now I can eat.
If you know the cashier at Cookout on a first name basis.
If the time 11:59 gives you a sense of terror.
If you would sell your soul to the devil for a free piece of pizza.
If you're not convinced that the sunrise actually exists.
If you can always do your dishes tomorrow.
If you've ever said to your friend at 2 a.m., hey, let's go to Waffle House. You might be a college student. Or a stoner.
You might be a college student if you know the
You might be a college student if you can convince your professor that you You might be a college student if you can convince your professor you're an
You might be a college student if 2 hours Nope. You might be a college student if 2 hours before. No. You might be a college student if you say. You might be a college student if. You might be a college student if you say one more episode. If you tell yourself one more episode. You might be a college student if you tell yourself one more episode 2 hours before a research paper is due. I wanted to say 8-page research paper. You might be a college student if you tell yourself one more episode 2 hours before an 8-page research paper is due.
Definition of roasting someone is replying to someone's discussion board post. You might be a college student if your definition of roasting someone is responding to their discussion board post with just a I just spit on your microphone. If you're not convinced that the sunrise actually exists, I mean, I've never seen it.